Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the No Close Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. Hopefully you've had a rocking October so far. Things are always busy around here with a variety of different things of us selling assets, looking at new assets, speaking and marketing. But I kind of want to take things back, take it back to the old school. We're an old fool who's so cool, you know what I mean? Can cover a couple basic things, especially for our listeners out there and the people that are looking to get into real estate investing, people are looking to get into notes, people that are they're attending things, but they're kind of on that edge of pulling the trigger of actually going the distance and actually closing on a deal. So this episode is kind of about the three basic things that you really need to look at in any type of real estate deal, any type of property you're looking at buying. It really kind of simplifies it down to the three basics. And this kind of comes down to securing your investor's principal. And really, what are you doing to secure it to protect not only you, but protect them and their investment with you, especially if you're using other people's money. Now, if you're not using other people's money, you want to secure your own investment, obviously, right? So the thing that was drilled in my head early on are the three basic things that you really need to look at with any type of real estate deal. Whether you're buying a rental, you're doing a fix and flip, you're buying notes, it all kind of lines up with these initial three things that you need to look at. Now, first and foremost, first thing is always value. You have to know value. I can't tell you the number of times that people have called me up to talk about a deal or a note, and they're all excited about it, but they don't know the true value of it, the true value of an asset. Now, that's not pulling Zillow. That's not pulling any appraisal. It's literally talking to a realtor and getting comps. Now, if it's a residential, it's a pretty easy deal to jump on and pull comps. And you're going to have some, variation in the markets, depending on what you're pulling and how effective you or your realtor are jumping on the local MLS, multiple listing service, and taking a look at the comparative market analysis, the CMA. Now, I'm not talking about going out and paying $400 for an appraisal. There's no reason to do that, and that's an initial cost that's going to be way, way too much. Or even paying for a BPO, a broker price opinion, which can run you, $100 to $150 per property. How do you do this? Let's take a look at a couple of things. First, in checking value, you want to see what's going on in the neighborhood, the condition of the property. You either need to put your eyes on it or somebody else's eyes on it. Now, in the note business, we are looking often at a lot of assets, so we don't put eyes on the assets till we've made bids. They've come back and countered back. We finally have a number. Then we look at value much more with a fine-tooth comb at that point. But when you're initially, like most people, they're driving around neighborhoods, driving for dollars, we used to say that, and looking at ugly assets, ugly properties, people that run down. Maybe they've got long weeds, or it looks like it's vacant, or a FSBO, for sale by owner, or they get a list from a wholesaler on potential assets, or they're pulling the violation, the zoning, code enforcement violations list from the local county, which is a good list to look at if you're looking for properties that are run down in an area. Now, you obviously aren't going to know the condition of the interior. I mean, maybe you can peek inside, but hopefully you're not peeking into somebody's bedroom if somebody's sort of living there. You should go peeking in windows if somebody's living there. Okay. But let's say it's vacant. You want to walk around the property, take a look at it. Be careful. Never break and entering. Okay. Don't perform a B&E. Don't want to get arrested, commit any felonies along the way. But you have to get an idea of where the asset value lies. Is it on the upper end in great condition, or is it on low end in crappy condition? That's the kind of variation you do. Now, there are all sorts of one-page, like due diligence checklist things you can look at and go from there when you're looking at an asset. This is different from a note due diligence checklist. So we're still just talking about the property right now. Okay. So looking at the property, what's the roof look like? Is there any cracks in the foundation? What's the lawn look like? What are the windows? Are they busted in? Like if it's on a, what does it look like? Does it need paint job? Does it look rough, or does it look good? Is it up with the regular maintenance of the rest of the neighborhood? Is a good thing to look at. If it's on par with everything else, great. Then you can look at recently solds in that neighborhood. Now, one big thing on value, as we talked before, value will vary on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, depending on what's going on with the neighborhood. Now, if there have been some distressed sales where there's been a foreclosure or a pre-foreclosure or a short sale, that will obviously drop down the value of the asset. Especially if there's been a foreclosure, it's going to affect every property in the neighborhood. You need to look at that stuff. Not everybody looks at that stuff. Now, some people I know, when they make bids, they'll pull just the distressed sales, and that's what they'll look at there in their CMA. Oh, let's get rid of all the good assets to drop their value down. And that's not a smart thing to do. It's why I suggest you always know your own value, always pull your own comps. Never trust what a seller is telling you. We've seen this many times happen in the note business where sellers will have pulled several BPOs and they will go with a higher BPO. They won't look at the other two BPOs. They'll try to stretch the values by finding higher valued assets, maybe just on the outskirts of the circle or the area that things are located in. So that's something to keep in mind that you want to look at and make sure that you have the true value in the true area of where it's at. Now, what goes into true value? Well, you need to know square footage. And people are like, well, how do you find that? You know what you do? This is where the Zillows, the Trulies will help you out because they'll often give you the number of beds and baths. All right. And then the year it built. Is it on par with everything else? Does it look like it's been updated? Oftentimes, some of the counties will even show recent solds in the nearby area too, which is really nice to help you look at comps online without having to get a realtor involved. But I still believe the best thing is look at what's going on, look what's sold in an area, and then talk to a realtor in the neck of the woods. Now, when we're out looking at assets, or we've been driving on different road shows and we see an asset, we look at that same block for what? We look for a for sale sign, okay? Look for a realtor there because what's a realtor sign going to help you out with? Well, it's going to find a realtor that knows the market, who's listing it, so they know the value, especially in that house that they sell. They're selling, and there's a great comparable to yours. Is it the right square footage? Is it up to date? Is it a distress sale? Is it a probate? Those are all different things that will affect the value because the interior may need work or may not. The exterior may need some work. So this is the things you got to look at to determine your values. Because like I said, I have people call me all the time with an asset and they say, well, it's somewhere between 40 and 80 grand. I'm like, that's way too big a spread on value. You don't really know your value, especially if they owe 75,000. Is it really worth 80 or is it worth 40? Your bid, you don't want to bid 50 cents on the dollar unpaid balance of 75,000. That's 37 and some change, and the value being 40. That's not a good thing. Now the value is 80, and you're bidding 50 cents of the UPB at 37. Now that's a deal. So you really need to know your values in an area. You need to have a realtor. I'm a big fan of using Note Pros. NOTEPROZ.com, notepros.com. You type in an address and it'll pull up information off the county records if it's available. It'll pull recent solds, give you a rough AVM. Now, what is an AVM? An AVM is an automated valuation model, basically Zillow. That's a good basic starting point if you can't find a realtor or a real estate agent in an area to help pull comps for you. Probably. This is why it's important to make relationships with local realtors. Taking a coffee, networking at your local meetup groups, things like that. That's why you want to go to your local real estate club so you can find people that you can work with, or jump on meetup groups or other areas and say, hey, I've got a property I'm looking at buying. If you could help me. Now, realtors won't always like to pull property values on a property that doesn't look like it's listed. So the note business, I have to constantly say that, hey, we bought portfolio. We're going to buy a portfolio of loans. Can you give us a quick valuation on that? Now, if you're just driving around, you're just going to take a look at what's going on and maybe pull real estate signs to take a look at. And okay, I want to adjust this down 20 grand because I guarantee the house that I'm looking at isn't in as good condition as brand new, spick and span, cleaned up, ready for the MLS aspect of things. But value, you need to know 5 to 10. The higher value of the house is 5 to 10 grand. It'll vary pretty easily. So don't get so excited. If you think it's worth 150, that's the high number on your values. I would drop it down to like 140 somewhere. That way you're conservative in your numbers and make your numbers work when you're working exit strategies or fixing flips. Always go off that lower number because there's no guarantee you're going to get that high end number. And your valuations, true numbers are going to come somewhere in that middle. Okay. That's the first one. Always knowing value. Now, second one, is checking taxes. This is an easily done thing that most people like, oh, how do I check taxes? Well, you can jump on the tax association's websites. Going to Netra Online, N-E-T-R online.com is a great website. It's a free website. It takes you to, it's basically a listing of every state, every county, city, township, province, whatever it might be. Tax association website. You'll have the county appraisal district. You'll have the county clerk. Often you have the tax assessor association, the treasurer of the county, stuff like that. But that's the first place you want to go, is the tax appraisal district, and look there first. Now, what do you have to type in? Well, either the address, the APN number. Now, what is the APN number? That's the property number. Every property in every state, every county has an APN. If you don't know what that number is, Zillow will often show it if you look down further on it. It's a great thing that Zillow truly does. But if you know the address, that's the first place. If you can find the borrower's name or know the borrower, type in their name, because that's a really handy thing that you want to do both times. Yes, an address is great and you can find the owner, but you may want to, by just doing a search for the owner, you'll see if they own other real estate in that same area, in that same county, in that same city. And that always comes in really handy when you're looking to see the thing you want to realize is that if you're looking at this stuff, if you can find somebody with multiple properties, it may be first and foremost, easier to reach out to them if you're looking to buy a true piece of property, or B, they may have other deals, other properties that they're looking to get rid of as well. Or C, in the note business, when we look to see if they own other property, this works as a leverage when we're buying a note deal with them, because if we buy a note, all right, on one of the properties they own and they don't work with us, and their other properties are titled in the same thing, we can go after them and say, hey, we're going to slap a judgment against the other properties until you get us paid. So that's the big thing about always knowing, very important thing too, making sure to check the taxes. What's owed? Are taxes paid up to date? Is there a pending tax sale? How do we see if there's a pending tax sale? Well, you can often see, they'll let you pull up the most recent bills. It's public record. Taxes are paid or not paid. If it shows taxes not paid, then double check. You may want to call the county with a phone call. Yes, that means you actually pick up the phone and call the county, see if they're pending tax sale. Because a lot of times, if there is a pending tax sale, it won't. The county websites won't allow you to pay the taxes on there. They'll say, "Oh, pending tax. I'm going to call to find out." In a lot of states, it kind of falls into two ways. One is either redemption period, so they do take a tax foreclosure. There's a redemption period where you can pay the taxes to get the asset back, or in some cases, when there's tax certificates, oftentimes there's no redemption period. So once the certificates sale, there's a 2 to 3 year period before they take it to tax sale. If the tax certificates are not redeemed or paid off prior to the tax sale, then it's sold, and whoever bought it at the tax sale wins. I would check out one of our previous videos on tax sales and tax overages. It's a great learning thing. Great topic for you guys to take a look at. It's like 254, 256. But anyway, checking taxes. It's important. Now, especially in the note space, if the name is different, and this is one thing that people miss out on, is they don't look the last couple of years on the taxes. They'll go and see the name and, oh, yeah, perfect. What we do in the note space is when we check taxes, go to county records, we look to see, how much is owed in taxes? What's the annual taxes due? Is a borrower current? But if the name has changed recently, especially in the last year or 2 years, depending on how far back, the loan has not been paid. That's one thing. If the loan's not been paid for 3 years, you want to go back and make sure that there's not been a name change in the last 2-3 years. If a name change, either property sold, somebody else has picked it up, or it's gone to tax sale, and you can't work with the borrower at that point because it's sold to somebody else. Now, if there's a redemption period, 6 to 12 months in some states, then you can still jump in there if it's happened the last 12 months or less. Okay. So checking taxes is one of the most easiest things to do. You should always do this before you make a bid on anything. Checking the taxes owed, checking, see what's owed, what's going on with it. Is the name still in the same place? Tax association website's great. Does it borrow more assets? Okay. It's a great thing to look at, okay? Important to do. So that's the second thing, checking taxes. Checking value, so you have a rough value, checking taxes. And then the third thing is all about checking title. Now, this is not going to, you're not going to start paying to pull title. There's no real, you could jump on the county clerks and try to look at title yourself, but you're going to ultimately miss something. You are not a title expert. So this is a requirement. I'd say everybody needs to have a title company that they work with. Now, you're not going to start diving into title unless you see a name change has happened, the tax sale, then you want to take a look at it and look at the county clerk, county recorder's office online and see what's kind of happened. Where has there been deeds filed, things like that. Okay. Most of the time, you're going to pay for a title report. Notes, we call it a title update. Previous two owners, because the note's still in. Note's still in effect. The owner's still in effect. There's been a title change as far as the name ownership change, I should say, in the last 2 years. But with traditional real estate, before you close, once you've agreed to a price or some sort of sale, maybe it's subject to, maybe it's doing a wraparound, maybe it's buying it outright, whatever it might be, you're going to definitely want to get a title report pulled. Now, in a traditional real estate, you're going to often pay for a full title update. Just do it. The seller often will pay for this, part of the closing docs, closing costs, and you want to review that. You want to make sure that, especially if you're buying the property, for the most part, you want to make sure that there's clear title across the board, especially if you're buying. Most properties and sales, there's clear title before a bank will finance that property. It's a requirement. Actually, 100% of the time, for there to be clear title. I mean, making sure that any liens or judgments have been taken off the property, any city liens, city ordinances, in some cases, utilities are paid up to date, or taxes are prorated and paid before or at closing, stuff like that. Now, with what we do in the note business, checking title is stuff we want to look at. We want to make sure that a lot of liens can be wiped out via foreclosure. So if we're in the first lien position, we want to make sure that there's no junior liens behind us, and that could be a second mortgage, it could be weed liens, it could be a private lien that's slapped on the property. We've dealt with a whole variety of things. You want to double check and talk with a local realtor or attorney more so, or the title company, and see what happens if you take that note back and foreclose. Will those liens be wiped out? Will those liens go away? Or will they follow the borrower and not the property? It's an important thing to keep in mind there. Now, another thing that's important too is you always check title before, especially if you're going to exit strategy of the note business, before we allow a borrower to turn the property over and walk away. You don't want them to deed the property back to the bank and there's a junior mortgage in place, because the minute now that we file that release in the first, now that junior mortgage drops into the first lien position, now we got to deal with them and foreclose them. So this is why it's important to always check the title, checking taxes and back taxes, liens. Is there daily fines being targeted to the property because if something's out of code? Is there a $500 weed lien or demolition, or has the property been subject to being trashed out or demolished by the city because it's sitting vacant and in a rougher position? So title is very important. Title update will cost you about $250. Full title report is about $250, $300, depending on where it's at. This can take a couple days to come in. The more rural the county, the longer it's going to take you to get a title update. Usually a title update can be done in 48 to 72 hours, or a full title report can be pulled roughly in a couple days. What happens a lot of times, especially if you're taking on a loan on a property, you're ready to close, you want to make sure, a week before closing, that all the title's been pulled and ready to rock and roll. Most people wait till the last minute, and then they're constantly harping on the title rep to get the title pulled, or the title plants to pull. And if it's in a rural area, it's going to take some time. So keep that in mind. Some counties charge for you to pull information, especially the rural ones, because they don't have a full-time staff. They're not online, so it requires them to go in and pull in information and report it all out. So title insurance is important, but you're not going to be paying for that on the front end. You pay that for that closing, or before you close, you're going to, especially in the note business, once we agree to a property price on a note and then we sign a contract, then we pay for title update. Don't need a full title report, but very easily do. Going to Pro Title USA, jump on their website. You can order it from there. Even email orders at protitleiusa.com. Title update for like the last 2 owners would be like 85, 90 bucks. All right. It's not a full title report back to when the property was created, which is what you would do if you're buying the property and selling in a traditional sale. You're going to pull a full title report in that way. So those are the 3 biggest things. Let's do a quick recap of this before we dive into some more stuff here. So first thing that we pull is values. You need to know your values. If you don't know your values, you don't know anything. Okay. That's the thing. When you reach out to somebody, especially if you're looking at an asset or you're looking for advice, counsel on what to do, know your values. If you don't know your values, it's a waste of time, and it's going to frustrate me. It's going to frustrate others that you reach out to for help as well. So always know your values. Second thing, check taxes. Netra Online, netronline.com. It's a free website. Check out taxes. Check out the owner's name matches up. See if they own any other assets. Check if taxes are paid. If they're not paid, is there a tax sale? Was there a tax sale? Is there a redemption period? These are questions you're going to ask the county by picking up the phone and calling. All right, very important to do to check that stuff out. It's basic due diligence. Those are the 2 big things in the front end. Values. Maybe you want to pull a BPO. Okay, that's about 125 to 150. Note space, you're only be able to pay for an external BPO, which is like a 125, 115. Full BPO can run you 150 to 200 bucks. I know some investors that are paying for 2 BPOs before they close, which is fine. They can do that. It's an extra $300 cost, and they use that as their way to help with due diligence because they're not relying on realtors or other people to go out there to do it. So it all depends on your network, and that's completely up to you. If you have a really good agent who understands it and works with you and you know the market, great. But if it's a market that you're outside of, just get somebody to go do it for you. There is a website called PRP, Property Real Reports, RPR, Real Property Reports. I'm sorry, that's what it is. Too many PPR, PRP, stuff like that. People with friends that have companies names, but NAR, RPR, Real Property Reports. It usually links into most of the MLSs across the country. If you're a realtor, it's free service. Just need to have your National Association of Realtors login information. If you're not a realtor, you may want to refer and say, hey, can you pull a property report with me if you've got access to this? And they can type it in. It's basically just an AVM. All right, automation valuation model. It's just used for front-end due diligence. But if you pull that, and it's going to give you a range of where they think the property's at. No interior inspection, obviously, but take a look at that and go from there. Now, and then that takes us on to our 3's checking title. Does the person selling the house have the right to sell? Does the bank who's selling the note have the right to sell the note? Is it still there for you to pick up? Or is it gone to tax foreclosure? What other things are behind your lien? These are all questions that have to be asked, and the answers are out there. You just got to pull that information and go from there. Now, that's going to be the most important 3 things that you need to do always and forever with every asset. Knowing your values, checking taxes, and checking title. That'll make sure that you're buying something that makes sense, something that's still there, something that has value, and you've done your initial due diligence. Now, obviously, there's more due diligence when you dive into other things. What's the neighborhood look like? What's going on in the city? And what's going on in the location? I mean, these are important things that you need to talk to your local professionals about. Some people don't know that. Like there's areas in Indiana, I'll give you an example, that they've flooded. They've turned into a man-made lake and flooded neighborhoods. And if your property's in that neck of the woods, you're buying a note that's supposedly in that neck of the woods, you want to make sure you're buying a property still and not something that's in Atlantis. Okay, it's underwater where Aquaman's at. That's an important thing to look at. You want to make sure, if your realtors are looking at the assets, that they're actually looking at the actual property that you're looking at. You don't want to make the mistake that we've had happen to some of our students, where a realtor went out and looked at 2 properties. One was a burned out shack, and the other was this pristine property. Well, the realtor pulled values for the nice property, not paying attention to the address being wrong, that the note that the investor is buying was on the shack, not the nice property. So incorrect data that when the investor got the value back, they're like, oh, it's a beautiful property. No, it's an ugly piece of shit that was sitting next door. So they overpaid for the asset. Luckily, they used their own funds on that deal. But that's an expensive tuition to learn when you're not double checking. So always make sure that the realtor takes a photo of the actual street number on the property of some sort. Okay. Using Zillow or Google Maps doesn't mean it's always the right asset sitting there in the dot on the map. Sometimes it's next door. So that's a big thing that maybe people have seen us do with their due diligence, is looking at the actual, street sign, the street numbers, or the mailbox. The name of the mailbox matchup is the street number on the mailbox matchup with the house where it's at. Those are important things that you got to look at doing. Right? Otherwise, if you don't, you could be spending money on a lot to buy a lot or a shack with a lot of other fees from the city. Okay. Other things that you want to make sure that you're doing too is, what'll happen a lot of times, make sure it's the same number of bed and baths, make sure it's similar square footage, plus or minus 100. A big thing on BPOs you're pulling is you want to look at recent solds besides just and pendings, and then also things have sold, pendings, all right, and actives, things that are under contract currently. Pendings, okay, those that have sold and those that are active. A big thing to look at too is days on market. What's the average day on market for your asset? Now, remember we talked about beforehand. Yeah, if you figure your value is 150, does that mean it's on days on market longer to get that? Try to get that, or would it make more sense for you to, all right, list it at 140, forget the 10 grand, give that to somebody else, especially equity, but get the thing sold in 60 days versus it taking 120 days, and then you still having to drop the value down or drop the price down to hit that nugget. Okay, look at days on market. I had one investor call me up and say, hey, I'm buying this property in LaGrange, Texas, which is about an hour from here, an hour and a half east of here. I'm like, okay, what's it worth? They go, it's worth 100. I'm like, okay. And, what are you buying the note for? 33 grand. Okay, how much is owed on the note? Oh, they owe over 130. Okay, great. You're buying it at discount. How much repairs are needed? Oh, roughly 35,000. I'm like, oh, what do they need? Oh, needs a new roof, needs this. I'm like, okay. What's your days on market? And they go 365 days in the market. I'm like, well, run. It would take you a year to sell that house when you finish up. Who are you financing with? Your own money or somebody else's money? Yeah, using somebody else's money, using a hard money lender at 18%. I'm like, run. You're going to lose your profits by paying off your hard money lender on this asset. The numbers don't make sense. And that's what you had to know. When you look at the value, you look at trying to figure out repairs and figuring out the market conditions. That's what you got to look at your exit strategy. It's really the ultimate thing at the very end that you got to pay attention to. Now, if your goal is to take a property back and hold it for an extended period of time as a rental, great. You're getting paid a little bit more for it. If your goal is to come back and flip it, do a wholesale deal to somebody else, then you need to get it really, really low price, below 60, 70 cents on the dollar. And this is the as-is value. It's not the after repair value. ARV is just a number, does not really exist out there, everybody. So know your exit strategy important. If you're buying a note and it's owner occupied and you want to keep them in the property, great. What do those numbers look like? What are you paying? Is it a performing note? Is it a non-performing note? These are all different things that you have to keep in mind of doing your due diligence. So take a look at and see, okay, they've been paying on time for a while. I'm going to pay probably 75, 80 cents on the dollar for that note. To get them, is the payment coming in minus cost still going to be a good return on investment for me for a couple of years? What's my goal after 12 months? Am I going to sell the note as a reperformer, keep it, or do what? Am I going to have to foreclose? If I have to foreclose, what's the numbers look like? So those are all important things to keep in mind. What are your holding costs? If you have a servicing company, what's that monthly cost going to be? If you're going to keep it as a rental, are you going to pay for property management? What's the taxes? What's the insurance costs along the way? I mean, we just had a huge, really a huge storm just come through Austin. A huge tornado hit through Dallas just recently, as of last night, and damaged homes and businesses. So you got to keep in mind what's going on with that. If the assets are in Florida or on the Gulf Coast, what's going to happen? Are you going to be able to afford the insurance costs of hurricane, of wind, damage, and rain? I've got a couple buddies that bought a nice house, $300,000-$400,000 note on a nice house. They foreclosed, they put some work in, but the insurance costs are like $700 a month. Okay, expensive insurance on that. and has been dragging out this foreclosure on this asset, and they keep having to pay the insurance costs. And the insurance is eating the deal alive. So that's an important thing that some people don't even bother looking at till the very end, as they're basically funding their calling to get the insurance paid on. I'm like, whoa. You need to check insurance costs on the front end. What's it going to cost you on a monthly and annual basis there for you? And figure that into your exit strategy. Is that going to make sense for you? Or now you're going from a double digit to a single digit return because you didn't check your insurance costs. Now, if you own the property, you're paying it. If it's the borrower on it, then they should be paying it. But let's face it, that doesn't always happen. So keep that in mind. Very important to take a look at on those due diligence items before you close, before you really do things. I know that many people get so excited about driving around looking at dollars and seeing ugly properties, grass is mown. And one of the first deals that I did was a subject to deal that was literally right around the corner from where I lived in Round Rock originally. And the borrower that owned the property, him and his wife had split, divorced. He actually moved closer to Houston. She moved somewhere else, but there was this property that was not being taken care of. Now, he had to pay the mortgage, but she was the one person responsible for selling the property. She was taking her sweet time. Well, what was happening? Well, the weeds were getting higher. The city had mowed the property a couple times. I finally was able to reach out to them and I got into the property. You could see it needs some cosmetic work, some tile work, some new carpet. Not too much, just some basic updating, but there's a lot of crap still left in the house. And the only way it made sense for us was to really take the property over subject to, which we were able to take over subject to, and then wholesale it to somebody else to come in who turned it into a long-term rental. We made $5,000 on the wholesale deal. Actually, $5,000 plus $100 because he gave me $100 to mow the lawn to save them $250 being on there. And so that was kind of the thing. I had to track him down, called a neighbor that I thought where he lived at, and the neighbor worked with the guy. The guy called me on his cell phone, but 2 days later, after he got off work, we negotiated things. He came up to Austin on the weekend. We met, walked the property. I kind of went through the due diligence sheet, talked about taxes owed, and he was willing to sign the property over subject to, with the approval of his wife, to get the property sold. And that's what we did. We were able to take it all over subject to with the 6 months and then sell it off in 45 days. So $5,000, 5,100 in 45 days is not a bad day or a bad week or a bad month for most people, especially for our first deal. That was phenomenal. Now, second thing, another deal that we looked at, mailed out letters, person called regarding the letters. I driven by it, saw that it needed some work. It needed a whole lot of work. There was really ugliness going on in the inside. You had a squatter living inside with 4 big dogs who were defecating everywhere. The bottom 2 feet of the sheetrock was yellow from where the dogs were pissing. And it was absorbing from the carpet up. When you'd walk in, the carpet would kind of go squish, squish. Ugh. Flies everywhere. Water had been turned off for 3 months. The lady was still using the toilets and then just wiping her butt and putting the dirty toilet paper in a Homer bucket, and then would close off the toilets for in a household as the level of excrement increased to the point where it was just full. It was just one of the nastiest houses I've ever been in. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything with the house. She owed more than the property's worth. The bank at the time, World Savings, wouldn't sell the note, wouldn't discount the note. We tried to do a short sale. They wouldn't work with us on the short sale. And eventually, she ended up passing away. She got sick and passed away in the property. There was all sorts of liens and judgments from the city. She'd been arrested a few times and had bonds out and things like that. So it was just an absolute title mess. The value, although a beautiful big square house on a over half-acre backyard on the end of a cul-de-sac, just was a total mess. The people that ended up buying it at the foreclosure auction had 5 dumpsters of just trash and nasty stuff they pulled out of the house. They just stripped the whole house down to the concrete slab and down to sheetrock because it was just messy and stinky, and then redid all the sheetrock. She was smoking in the house too. So basically stripped it down to the studs and then had to sheetrock, redo everything, go up there full. So it was a major rehab to get everything. 207 Silk Cove is the address that comes to my mind now, out of the blue. But yeah, there can be some nasty stuff out there, people. There can be really nasty things. If you I know we all get excited about going to workshops and flip this house and all these things that are on TV. We want to be a millionaire. We want to change our lives. And it's easy to get sucked into that stuff and run around trying to do things. But if you don't know what you don't know, you can end up writing a check that ends up a check that your ass can't cash, basically. How do I know? Hey, I've been there. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, in my real estate business as well too. And you learn more from them, but this is why it's important to network with other people, to build relationships with vendors. A good sign, if you're in traditional real estate and you're using a hard money lender, and a hard money lender won't finance the property because they don't believe your values or rehabs, that's usually a sign that, hey, you haven't done your work. All right. One of the most valuable things that I did early on in my business was when I was getting real estate, I would run it by a hard money lender, kind of as my check. And if they were willing to finance it, I knew it was a pretty good deal, and I would market it to other private investors, knowing that I had a backup funding source with a hard money lender. There's also been times that we have sold assets with pre-approved financing in place from a local lender, a hard money lender, who would finance the repairs and be in place. And that's a valuable marketing tool to use as well, because oftentimes hard money lenders have their own list of investors that they'll mail out deals to, email out, with the hopes of getting them to finance or take them on for financing. And so they can make their points and their spread between what they're borrowing the money from for private investors and what they're charging. So that's another thing is you want to look at too, is what are your money costs going to cost you? If you're using your own money, okay, what's the cost for that? Opportunity cost, using your own money versus somebody else. What's somebody else going to charge you? Is it below market rates? Is it bank financing? And I'll tell you right now, most of you are not going to get bank financing. People talk all the time like, oh, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. He's like, oh yeah, I've only had my LLC for a year. I can't get bank financing for another year. I was like, you'll need to wait around for bank financing. If you'll go out and talk to investors, you'll go out and network, you can raise capital from those people and make things happen. So, that's the thing. If you're gonna go financing with a bank, hey, what are they gonna cover? If you're gonna use hard money financing, what are the costs? What's the time frame? Is there renewal cost to extend it for 6 months? What's the days on market? These things all have to match up to make sure it's a good deal for you before you pull the trigger, whether it's traditional real estate or note investing. Hey, be very careful out there. All the things that can go wrong, because let me tell you right now, things will go wrong. Okay. Either contractors will, slough off. You may end up paying, you'll find something wrong with a property that you didn't find, water heater, boiler. You got to replace plumbing in an area. There's a whole lot of different things that go wrong. The slab is cracked. The roof doesn't need to be replaced spot. There's all sorts of things that go wrong. Oh, there's a lien out there that you missed trying to do it yourself. Okay. Those are all different things that can happen. And one of the best things that you can do initially is hire somebody to come in and help you out, hold your hand, mentor you, walk you along. A coach is great. Somebody who's got experience in doing this, because it's years of experience. Hey, you might have to pay somebody to coach you. You know what? Free has no value, and that person, he or she who's got the years of experience, their time has been worth something. So keep that in mind. I see this happening, people bashing coaches and mentors, and I laugh. I'm like, they spent all this time, as long as they've done deals. Now there's people out there that don't do deals. There's a big difference. Those that are doing deals and have got a ton of experience, their knowledge, their time, their coaching is extremely valuable. Those that haven't pulled the trigger on deals, that aren't doing stuff, yeah, that's not worth it. But there's plenty of people out there you can reach out to and talk to, and it's well worth it to make sure you're doing it. How do you find a good coach, good mentor? Talk, ask people, ask for references. Who have you coached? What have they done? It's one of the big things that you got to keep in mind. You want to deal with somebody who's helped others be successful. That's the big point. Is success. If you want to be successful, find other people that are doing it or have done it and are in a place where you want to be, and go talk to those people. Take them to lunch, take them to breakfast, take them to dinner. Get together with them, as far as just spend time with them, but don't be a asshole where you ask a ton of questions, don't take answers. Don't sit there and pick their brain and then don't reciprocate in some sort of fashion. Some people will do a split a deal. Some people will do a flat fee on the front end. Some people will take a percentage. There's no right or wrong on that aspect of it, but whoever is going to give you the best knowledge, it's going to be be worth it, whatever you pay for those. Because I know that when I've paid for coaches and mentors, it has always helped me speed up that learning curve dramatically, where I was able to get a lot more done or avoid mistakes and pitfalls along the way, because I had somebody there kind of hold my hand and say, hey, watch out for that, watch out for this, and go from there. So that's important. Don't take your advice from somebody who's done one deal and now they're teaching a program or a workshop. It's not the same thing, okay? Not the same thing. Somebody's done it over and over and over, stubbed their toe, busted their lip open a few times, hit their thumb with a few hammers along the way. That's the important thing to keep in mind with that, is that, look, experience is you can pay for experience in one of two ways, with either time and your own experience and money, or with money to somebody else who's had the experience to help speed you up. And so that's an important thing too. No matter what you're doing, wholesaling, fix and flipping, landlording, lease options, wraparounds, whatever, sub twos, whatever type of asset class it is, there's experts that have done what you're doing and can help you get there a lot faster. And that will also give you other due diligence aspects along the way that are unique to that asset class. The thing you can't do is judge one asset class and then go out and try to apply it to something else. I had a student who's interested in mobile home park investing, and he's never taken a class in mobile home park investing, but he's all sitting there trying to hire a realtor. I'm like, wait a second, you're coming from this space. Yes, I know you've been a realtor before. You're coming from the note space as well. Look, you need to learn what the ins and outs of this. This isn't just the same thing as going out and making offers. That can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Why don't you sign up and take a class from somebody? Here, recommend this person, or take this other person class. Take something and educate yourself, because that will be much more valuable to you than you going out and trying to do it on your own and try to save a couple $100, okay, or $1,000. You'll make a mistake that'll cost you exponentially greater than that. So do yourself a favor, everybody. If you're diving into brand new, take a deep breath, but those big three things are universal across the way. You need to know value, you need to know the tax situation, checking taxes, and then you'll need to check the title. Those three major things will help protect your investment or your investor's investment in your deal first and foremost. So commit those to memory. You may tweak it a little bit depending on what type of asset class, but still, those are the three biggest things you got to keep it when it comes to performing due diligence initially on different types of deals out there for you. So go out, take some action, everybody. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you all at the top. Bye.